C'est Xavier Zalbert from François, Robert Kennedy. Et j'ai ici aussi Mary Holland, qui est professeure en voilà, Human Rights Attorney, et qui sera avec nous.
Well, thanks a lot for making yourself available so rapidly. I actually was very impressed with the speech that you gave yesterday, and decided to actually make a paper in François, who is in online media with an historic brand name, to speak about the message that you have. Probably my first question to you is, what is going on according to you in this world?
Well, you know, I think there are people out there who believe that, suggest that the entire pandemic was planned, that the virus itself was genetically engineered, that it was either accidentally released or a planned release, that it was weaponized somehow. And the truth is, I don't think anybody knows the answers to those questions. But this is a crisis, and every crisis becomes an opportunity of convenience for authoritarian elements. And this one in particular has become an opportunity of convenience. In the same way that 9/11 was, you know, every major trauma is used by elites, whether it's military or intelligence apparatuses, or whether it's telecom companies, or in this case, I think you look at, you ask the question, cui bono, who's benefiting? Well, the people who are benefiting most are, of course, the Silicon Valley billionaires who now control communications among the human race, whether it's Amazon with Jeffrey Bezos, or Zuckerberg, or Bill Gates. And they're the ones who are continuing to make billions and billions, while the middle class globally is obliterated. All social programs are bankrupted. And, this transition to really an oligarchical and plutocratic society also requires a tremendous amount of social control. And it's worrying that 5G installation is occurring at the same time, which will give them the capacity, an unprecedented capacity for surveillance and control of human behavior, as well as an ability to harvest our data and turn us into consuming machines. Well, I think that's what's happening. It doesn't matter whether it was planned or not. What's happening is it's being utilized to maximum effect to impose obedience and social control on humanity.
And well, thanks a lot for that. And now turning, you've just spoken about who would benefit from that. Now turning to the media, you just had a big crowd in Berlin yesterday. You delivered a pretty amazing speech that touches a lot of people, and a lot of people, human rights and health. Nobody's covering it. Why is that, according to you?
Well, not only are they not covering it, but I said at the beginning that what would happen was that they would pretend that all those people weren't there. That they would report that 3,000 or 5,000 people were there, and that it was all Nazis. And today, somebody just sent me, a relative of mine, a brother-in-law who happens to be Jewish, sent me a headline from the Daily Kos, which is a big newspaper in the United States, saying that Robert Kennedy was in Berlin speaking at a demonstration for Nazis and anti-Semites. And he was wondering what happened to me between the last time he saw me and right now. And so it's really extraordinary how, tight the clampdown is on censorship in the mainstream media, but then, the social media that is benefiting from this quarantine. Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook and Google. Google today is a vaccine company. It's making vaccines. It has, $750 million deal with Glaxo. It's making flu vaccines, making COVID vaccines. It's a subsidiary of its parent company, Alphabet and Verily. And it's censoring any information that's critical of vaccines or that's critical of government policies. And, it's really, we're living in a world that is quite extraordinary. It's Kafkaesque. It's something that we thought maybe would happen someday because we read George Orwell and Aldous Huxley when we were kids and Kafka, but we never expected it would happen so soon. And, I guess it's time to strap your boots on it and head for the hills if we have to, because they really have a chokehold on everything. On the media is extraordinary. Their ability to punish people, their ability to say without any challenge that I was here to speak to Nazis. And when the biggest stage ornament was a photograph, a huge picture of Mahatma Gandhi, who is not a big Nazi, icon, by the way. The master of ceremonies was a black man from Ghana. There was a Hare Krishna monk on the stage. This was the opposite of Nazism. It was people who love liberal democracy. It was people who love freedom and freedom of speech, and want to make sure that that we continue to enjoy those freedoms. It was people who question authority, which is the opposite of Nazism.
Okay, that's good. And now you spoke about vaccine. And about have some form of investments and become vaccine company. Are you worried about the development of these RNA vaccines?
Well, I can't believe that the Moderna vaccine will go anywhere because the clinical trials were so abysmal. You had in the high dose group, 21% of the people who got the vaccine had serious reactions, meaning they either had hospitalizations or required medical attention. Any other medicine that had that kind of risk profile would be dead on arrival. In addition to that, in the low dose and medium dose groups, 100% of the people had reactions. So, they're contemplating giving this vaccine to children, to billions of children around the planet. A child has essentially zero risk from COVID. Why would you give them a medication where there's 100% risk of a reaction, of a bad reaction? And by the way, the people that they test this on are not your normal Americans. They only test them on the healthiest people, on people who have no diabetes, no rheumatoid arthritis, no Graves' disease, Crohn's disease, people who've never smoked a cigarette, people who are not overweight. And, now they're going to roll this out and try to give this vaccine to, Americans who are 50 pounds overweight and are eating, donuts and having diabetes, arthritis, all these other problems. It's, to me, that vaccine has so many problems. If it goes to market, I think it's going to be the end of all vaccines because there'll be so many bad reactions to it that nobody will ever take a vaccine again.
So you're not really worried about the outcome because you think it won't even get to market, yeah?
Well, I think that one, I'm worried still that, they have 200 of them in the pipeline. I think, there's some places that have already passed laws that are going to mandate them once they get FDA approval, that they're automatically mandated. And that's insane. How can you mandate a product that you don't even know what it is yet? And particularly a medical intervention that you're giving to healthy people. This is not like a medicine that, you know, we're going to give it to a sick person and there's a risk, but, you know, the sick person could die from the illness. You're giving this to healthy people with zero risk of getting sick. And so it's very, very twisted. But, you know, if we look back in human history, if you read history, there are many times in history where you had, you know, you had this kind of tyranny before. You know, I'm in a country right now where, you know, that was the most enlightened, highly educated people on the planet in 1930. And one of the most democratic countries that ever existed. The best educated people in Europe. Probably the most tolerant, you know, which is why there were so many Jews living in Germany, because they were fleeing the pogroms in the East and, you know, the Spanish Inquisition and all these other places. They ended up in Germany and they felt comfortable here. You know, they felt that they were part of the country, and, you know, the whole world went crazy. So I think tyranny has a way, and totalitarianism has a million ways to get, you know, into the national DNA. And, you know, I grew up in a world where people thought, because, you know, my parents were from the World War II generation, and they thought it's something with the Germans. There's something wrong with the Germans, you know, but my father always said, it's not the Germans, it's all of us. It can happen anywhere. We've all, whatever the Germans have, we all got it. And if we're not careful, the same thing will happen here. It's nothing to do with the Germans. It's something to do with all of us.
So if your father was still amongst us, you think he would still say the same thing? Probably stronger?
I think he would. I think he would be very, very worried about what's happening right now.
And Robert, I know you're the chairman or president of an association regarding the children's health defense. If we turn towards our children, because I guess what you're probably worried about is the legacy world that we will leave to our children, or the world that we're living. What do you think we should do for our children? I heard you say we should buckle up or put our boots on, and the solution's going to come from the citizens?
Well, listen, I think all the solutions ultimately are in democracy, you know, but in a functioning democracy, which we don't have in the United States. We used to be an exemplary nation. We let the money into politics, and our democracy got undermined, and now people lost faith in it. And, you know, the regulatory agencies have been captured by the industries that they're supposed to regulate. The politicians have been corrupted. The votes don't count anymore. And you have these big industries that are now running the communication centers. The pharmaceutical industry controls network television. You know, and then you have the social media that has all of these agreements with telecom on 5G and with the big pharmaceutical companies. So we're seeing this medical cartel that has made these strategic alliance with social media and with telecom and with the intelligence agencies, by the way, and the military agencies. And we're really looking at the advent of a very, very dark plutocracy. I didn't mean to. I hope I can say something to cheer you up at the end of this.
Well, it's you know, the tone that you're saying is serious, but I think that there is some way out, because you're saying that the way out is democracy, so we have to find our way through democracy. and suicide.
Right.
Now,
And I think that's why the institutions that still remain, most of the institutions that stand between a greedy corporation, a vulnerable little child, have been neutralized. You know, the Congress, the parliamentary system, those people have been bought by contributions. The regulatory agencies have been captured through all these mechanisms of agency capture. The press has been undermined and stolen from us. It no longer is, you know, it's no longer about telling the truth. It's about promoting orthodoxies, you know, government orthodoxies and corporate orthodoxies. And, but we still have the courts. You know, in our country, you're not allowed to sue a pharmaceutical company or injuring your child, but you can still sue them for fraud. And there are still ways that we can bring them to justice. And we have that last, you know, redoubt. The last fortress of democracy is really, you know, that we do have a functioning judicial system, at least mainly functioning. And then we have the streets. You know, but as you pointed out, we had maybe 1 million people on the streets yesterday, and nobody noticed it somehow. And you know, there's that old question that Emerson asked. Emerson asked, if a tree falls in the forest and nobody's there to hear it, did it actually fall? And the question is, if 1 million people show up in the middle of Berlin and nobody writes about it, did it actually happen? And that is a good question, because according to the rest of the world, you know, it didn't happen. Very, very good to meet you, and it was really enjoyable talking to you.
Yeah, and thanks a lot for your time, Santa, Mary, and Robert. And as I say, if you can come to France, I definitely invite you.
Thank you, Xavier.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.